Apple TV Plus' Blackbird depicts the grim and strange story of Larry Hall, Paul Walter Hauser, and for the most part, is an honest retelling of his life. Premiering on Apple TV Plus in July 2022 and based on the 2010 autobiographical novel In with the Devil, a fallen hero, a serial killer, and a dangerous bargain for redemption by James Keane, Blackbird is a recounting of the real-life sting operation the FBI set up to ensure the convicted serial killer, Larry Hall, never had the chance to appeal his life sentence. Blackbird stars an ensemble cast of talented actors, including Taron Egerton, Sepideh Mofi, Greg Kinnear, and Ray Liotta. Created by Dennis Lehane, who also wrote novels like Shutter Island, Mystic River, and Gone Baby Gone, which have all been adapted into exceptional movies, Blackbird was also widely praised. The 6-episode miniseries has a 98% on Rotten Tomatoes and earned 3 Golden Globe nominations with 1 win, and 3 Emmy nominations with 1 win. Thanks to Keane's detailed account, the story also manages to hew close to reality. Larry Hall is a real-life convicted serial killer. Hall is thought to have abducted and murdered multiple young girls in the 1980s and 1990s. Larry Hall is at the center of Blackbird, and though the story is told through Keane, Egerton, it's Hall's life that's truly in question. Born on December 11, 1962, in Wabash, Indiana with his twin brother Gary, Hall grew up being teased for what was perceived as a low IQ and a speech impediment. A research paper on Larry Hall performed by researchers at Radford University also noted his low IQ score, a fact his schoolmates did not leave alone, via Radford University. In his free time, Hall regularly helped his father, Robert Hall, dig graves. He later took a job as a janitor after he left school. Over the years, Hall was suspected of committing such crimes as arson, vandalism, and other petty crimes in Wabash, and he was even suspected of abducting young girls in Michigan and Indiana. Charges were never laid, but the 2 girls have never been found. Between 1980 and 1994, Hall traveled across the Midwest, participating in Revolutionary War and Civil War reenactments, which he had become fascinated with. It was during this time that some authorities believe Larry Hall may have been responsible for the murder of over 40 young women, via the Cinemaholic. The FBI feared Hall would win an appeal due to lack of evidence. Hall was never actually convicted of murder, only kidnapping. Paul Walter Hauser as Larry Hall sitting at a table in Blackbird _ Hall managed to stay out of investigators' crosshairs until the remains of 15-year-old Jessica Roach were uncovered in an Indiana cornfield in late 1993. After nearly a year with no leads, Illinois police learned about a man driving a van around the area who often tried to pick up young girls. One of these girls had noted the van's license plate, which led police to Larry Hall. When they brought him in for questioning and showed Hall a picture of Jessica, he immediately reacted. According to Gary Miller, the chief investigator for Vermilion County Sheriff's Office in Illinois, via CNN, Hall eventually confessed to murdering Roach and mentioned other girls that he couldn't be sure about, but he thought he may have also killed. However, Hall quickly recanted everything he said, which left investigators unsure if they had a true serial killer or someone who was having trouble distinguishing reality from fiction. Hall was eventually convicted of kidnapping Roach after evidence was found in his van, but prosecutors could not tie the murder to him. He was sentenced to life with no parole. Hall appealed his sentence around 1996 to 1997, and his lawyers made a strong case that Hall's personality disorder had made him susceptible to the police's intimidation tactics, and he was coerced into a confession, via E! The appeal also said that Hall was deprived of his right to a proper defense because his personality disorder was not properly explained at trial. It was enough for Hall to win, and the FBI feared that a man they were sure had murdered multiple people would soon walk free. So they came up with a plan. Jimmy Keane was enlisted as an FBI operative to get a confession from Hall. Keane was serving a 10-year sentence for drug dealing. Taron Egerton and Paul Walter Hauser as Jimmy and Larry talking in Blackbird. The other main character in Blackbird and the author of the book the show is based on is Jimmy Keane. Keane was a convicted drug dealer who was facing 10 years to life in prison after he took a plea deal not knowing the full extent of what he was agreeing to. After only 10 months, Assistant U.S. Attorney Lawrence Beaumont, Edmund in Blackbird and played by Robert Wisdom, approached Keane and made him an offer, transfer to Hall's high-security prison to befriend Hall and get a confession. In turn, Keane would earn an early release. Keane quickly managed to befriend the lonely Hall, making a connection with him by pretending to share an interest in the prison's library. He solidified their relationship by beating up another inmate who turned off Hall's television show. Hall slowly opened up to Keane, and eventually gave him details about other murders that only the killer could know, leading to some of the more disturbing lines in Blackbird. In the culminating moment of the series, Keane walks in on Hall working on a map of Indiana, Illinois, and Wisconsin. This really happened, and Keane describes in his book how Hall had placed carved wooden falcons over red dots he had drawn on the map. According to Hall, the falcons were supposed to watch over the dead buried in each spot. In real life, Keane immediately dropped the charade of friendship and unleashed a torrent of rage on Hall, releasing the bottled-up disgust he had felt after being forced to empathize with the horrific murders Hall told him about.